Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya al-mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we have presented the positive Islamic psychology and also the PIP CBT model for us to work on, and the research will be based on this format in which we have explained to you in detail of how the three environmental sources of your physical environment, your social, interpersonal and community, as well as global environment affects your perception, and how the inner speech from your total past learning history coming from your perception of this existence in this world based on the physical existence, spiritual, emotional and mental existence. And this model can be used for our positive Islamic cognitive behavior therapy as well as our positive Islamic psychology as a way forward for example, motivation. What are the motivational framework that we can develop within positive Islamic psychology? There's one book that inshallah will come out, and we have 135 videos. You go to YouTube, Islamic Motivation PIP. There's 135 videos there explaining how we can use this model as a motivational framework to develop Muslims, and the title will be series on positive Islamic psychology on being achievers in life, because we have to promote and develop millions and millions and millions of Muslims, especially the younger generation, to be achievers in life, not to be a laggard, not to be somebody who just go through life without meaning and purpose, but somebody who wants to achieve something good for themselves, for their family, for the ummah, for humanity, for the environment, for so many things that they can focus their life on. Not just to make money, but to serve themselves, the family, the ummah as an achiever in life. And also we can use this framework, and as we talk about the idea of therapeutic concept in terms of PI CBT, positive Islamic cognitive behavior therapy, based on CBT and how this whole framework will work. So I have explained in detail this model. You can go to our book and you get the whole detail, but I'm going to explain to you also within our model how Muslims, as we develop this model, we must understand that we are living in the 21st century. So in this book we have also explained, based on that model just now, how the PIP, PICBT model in respect to how we integrate with Maqasid Shariah and how we integrate with our framework of Islamic belief, our ihsan, iman and Islam, and how this actually builds upon. Because we are not living in isolation now. We are living in a global village. Remember, we are living in a global village, whether you're in Saudi Arabia or whether you are in Iran, whether you are in Indonesia, majority Muslim countries, or you are in somewhere in America or in Canada where you are minority. You are all impacted by the same environmental, inter and societal influences, as well as the same kind of inner speech. So we are globalized in terms of our thought processes. So how are we going to handle this? So it is very important for us to understand that in Islam we have a wonderful model. So that model I've explained to you, our PIP, PICBT model, is the most complete model for the understanding of the human existence and human psyche. It's up to us to develop naturally the details of this model. But what is important is, in this 21st century, all Muslims, in fact many scholars have already now come to the understanding that if we talk about, say, any model that develop for the ummah, we must develop the Maqasid Shariah. So the Maqasid Shariah is, there are 8 Maqasid here. There are some people, they say 5, 6 or 7, but we take 8, okay? And this model in Maqasid Shariah, how are we going to integrate? For example, I read from the book, Application of Maqasid Shariah in Positive Islamic Psychology Model. From this book, Positive Islamic Psychology, a Transcendent Model to Achieve Peace, Happiness and Success. You can buy this book online or get a hard copy. Alright, so what does it say? The fundamental of Maqasid al-Shariah are deeply rooted in the 4 schools of Islamic jurisprudence. That means all the Ahli Sunnah school, whether you are Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali or the others. To achieve peace, happiness and success in the 21st century, we have to integrate this Maqasid Shariah in our model. Because everything that we do, we cannot see from a parochial, narrow-minded, isolationist idea. That era is gone, because as I mentioned, we must be able to live in the world which is multipolar, multi-religious, multicultural, multiracial, multi-everything, without losing our deen. So how to do that? We must then have a very broad-based usul and a very broad-based Maqasid Shariah to understand all these things. Okay, it is worthy to note that the four essential characteristics of justice as developed in the Islamic system are derived from the Quran and the Hadith. The objective of Maqasid al-Shariah are therefore to regulate the usul fiqh, the principles of Islamic jurisprudence, to the extent that they reflect and conform to the highest relevant situation for humanity in the 21st century. So we have to move away from the narrow, very parochial, very extremistic idea of this usul to a very broad usul and absorb everybody, especially we Muslims. We must, anybody who is a Muslim, who declare La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, regardless of their sect within Islam and so on, we must embrace them, rather than split hairs over small issues and then in the end call each other kafir. That is not the way forward. That is a way of destruction for the ummah and destruction for the future of this world. But we must be able to bring this beautiful Maqasid Shariah. So there are many explanations to the Maqasid Shariah here in terms of the primary Maqasid, the secondary Maqasid, the tertiary Maqasid, Tasniyat, and the Amaliyat. So the action that we have to do in terms of all these things. So if we are talking about respect for divine revelation, we must learn how to respect insofar as the Arkanul Islam, for example, at the primary Maqasid is respect for divine revelation. Secondary, the Hajjiyat is to believe in one God, and the tertiary will be the Arkanul Islam, Pillar of Islam, Iman and Ihsan. So all these things. And then what are the Amaliyat that we have to incorporate into our life? Okay, so the details are here. Alright. And then we talk about freedom of religion. So we Muslims, we want to be free to practice our way of life. Islam as a deen in Europe, in America, in everywhere in the world. Right? Likewise, we also must respect, say for example, somebody of a different creed. So you cannot have a one-sided argument and say, okay, I want to practice Islam, for example, in the country X, which is Muslim majority. All of you, the rest of you, whether you're Christian or whether you're Hindu or you're Buddhist or you're atheist, you got no right to exist. That doesn't work anymore. Alright? Those are where we have to learn to live in terms of a very open society, to absorb and live in peace and harmony and in love with all these things. Then we can thrive. Not only that we thrive, then we can say, oh, this is a beautiful deen, and people will come. Where Allah tells us in the Quran, A'udzubillahi minash-shaytanir rajim, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفر إنه كان توابا. So the day will come when people come in groves, coming to this deen. Why? They saw the beauty in this deen. They don't see the evil. And now people are seeing the evil because there is a conspiracy to make Islam look evil, and there are Muslims who are practicing evil ideas. We cannot deny that. But if we continuously develop based on this Maqasid, we would then be able to relive this beautiful deen, relive this beautiful promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that promise is eternal, where people will come in droves into Islam because they saw the beauty of this deen. And to see this beauty of this deen, we must live in peace, in harmony, in love with everybody and every creature in this good earth. So the second thing, the second Maqasid is respect for the human person. And this is very important. So the same thing as we have freedom in religion, we must also promote freedom in terms of how we Muslims have a very open-minded idea about the nature of freedom. No doubt we cannot go to the extent of saying freedom to do anything and everything in public, being nude and so on, whatever it is. There are certain parameters within Islam which is universal. So the universal principles of freedom as enshrined by many of the religion, as well as in, for example, in the declaration, various declaration, we must be able to uphold that promise and be part of this whole global movement towards greater freedom for all humanity. Okay, so this constitutes of the respect for the human soul, peacemaking and peacekeeping, respect for life, and the duty to protect the unborn. So these are the various secondary hijriyat in terms of respect for the human person. Then tertiary will be for our human soul, renewal of our spiritual. Then peacemaking is societal renewal. So Muslims must be involved in this societal renewal in the 21st century, because as this civilization gets more and more stressed out in terms of the conflict, inter-Sinai conflict that we are seeing even in the Muslim world and in the non-Muslim world, and the refugee problems, the climate problems, and so on, we must be involved so that we would then be able to do a tajdeed, a renewal based on the deen that we have explained. So we have the number 3 will be respect for the family and community, how we are going to live as a family and a community, because the whole structure of the family as a basis for this society now in the 21st century is being challenged. So there are many challenges that's already happening obviously in the West. All right, there are many other so-called alternative to the family system, which can be very destructive. But how are we going to explain to them with love and with grace? Not by condemning them, okay? Whatever alternative lifestyle that they have, whether it is homosexuality or lesbianism or a family consisting of only 2 mothers or 2 fathers, whatever they want to do, or partnership, all kind of jargon, or marriage even, whatever, between man and man, woman and woman, whatever there is, we are going to face this. This is a reality. How are we going to learn to live with them? Because they are there. You cannot just hide away and say, oh, there's no such thing. All right, those are the realities of the 21st century. So how we are going to maintain our family structure and keep this beautiful family structure within the deen, because frankly, it is the Muslims that now will be the forerunners, the holder of this barrier of structuring a family based on the beautiful relationship between man and woman and children and so on. So we have that model, beautiful model from the deed, from the revelation and from the sunnah of the Prophet, and the great scholarship within this idea of sociology of the family. All right, so number 4 would be respect for the environment. Number 5 will be economic justice. So this is very important. We cannot have 1% of the world taking 90% of the wealth of the world. That is bound to collapse. Every revolution that you see in human history are where gross injustice happened. So now we are moving towards this whole critical point. If the rich gets richer and the poor get poorer, then there will be a time when they will revolt. And this is already, we are seeing the seeds of this happening already. So we have to have a just economic justice. How are we going to develop a just society based on entrepreneurship, based on democratic processes, not by force, not by killing, not by revolution, but by working together with all the good human beings, whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims, working to develop an alternative model that is just and fair. No doubt, forever, as long as you live in this world, there will be the rich, there will be super rich, there will be the poor. But as long as we can bring the gap in terms of the level between the rich and the poor is not to the extent that the poor are oppressed, because the rights of the poor in terms of education, shelter, food, clothing, and living a good life must be respected. So we must find a way to work together with all the good people of the world to develop economic justice. Then we talk about political justice, respect for human dignity, and respect for knowledge, because Islam is based on knowledge. So based on this Maqasid Shariah, if we look at our model, we are going to extract all these ideas into our model. And as we develop this model into various streams of motivational know-how or motivational techniques or toolbox, we have to bring this. So within this Maqasid, naturally we must work with ihsan, and ihsan is based on love. All the time we must have love flowing through all that we do. You must have ihsan, and our model is always based on love. All right, and then we maintain our belief in Allah and our rukun, the iman, Islam iman, all the belief system within Islam and the rukun Islam, all the duties as a Muslim as it goes outward into this whole sphere. So once you can see this, this is a very beautiful integrated model. And it is within the framework of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, within the framework in which a lot of our modern scholars are working on through this idea. But we must open the idea for example, discussion within Islam, within Muslim scholars, from those who are very, very narrow, from those who are willing to kill each other because of a certain ideology, to those who think that we must have a new caliphate, and if we cannot do that, we must use it by force or by committing bombing or whatever it is. From these people, we must draw them away and bring a beautiful deen that, inshallah, as Allah has mentioned, people will come because of the beauty and because of our respect for each other, and because we are living in a global village, and in this global village we want all human beings to have a fair share of the world and live in peace, happiness and success, which is the goal of every Muslim in this world, and inshallah a glorious hereafter. See you.